Yes, and that is Siesta Ocho. That means it's time for City Business. This is James Moore. Welcome to another Haps of the City Haps program. Welcome FMC into the house, Fairfield Media Center. You can check these out in living video Technicolor, not just this wonderful oral thing, which is so much more peaceful and restful, I think. But, to each his ownest, right? And speaking of city business, Michael Halley in the house. Good to see you, Michael. How you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here.
Well, good to have you on board. Jump right into that mic so we can hear you. And we bring this to you after each city council session the following lunchtime, Thursday, 6:30 p.m., and the following Monday morning, breakfast time, 6:30 a.m., for everyone to stay up to snuff. So what's happening in City Hall?
All right, this is a review of our regular council meeting for July 27, 2015. Before we got started, we wished our very own Fairfield Media Center director, Jason Strong, a happy birthday. So now is the day after his birthday, but happy birthday, Jason. He came out, even on his birthday, to film city council meeting. So it just shows the guy is always going above and beyond.
A true hero.
True hero. All right. We had a public appearance, but really no appearance, but just a request from the Chamber of Commerce on two issues: their annual garage sale and the holiday lighting ceremony. The garage sale is happening. Give me some moment here to open this up. It's an annual event over at the corner of Washington and Court Street. There's a municipal parking lot. It's closed off for the day. It starts at 8 a.m. It's happening September 19th. Oh, that's right. That's the same day as the Kids' Day parade. So come on out. And then the holiday lighting ceremony always is the Friday following Thanksgiving. And just wanted to close off the south side parking spots for horse and buggy. So those were approved. We approved our strategic plan that we had worked on. The council met, and separately the department heads had met, and everything was combined into a new vision statement, mission statement, core values, and some priorities. So I'm going to give the executive summary real quick. The city's newly formed mission statement is as follows. The representative, if I could speak, it would help. The representatives of the city of Fairfield, from elected officials to employees at every level, pledge to provide quality services in the most efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly manner possible in accordance with our values. Our vision statement. Fairfield exemplifies a community dedicated to providing the highest quality of life by promoting economic development, citizen involvement, and smart and orderly growth while encouraging healthy living, diversity, and sustainability. Our core values, we tried to keep this list from getting too long, but are honesty, equity, community, professionalism, integrity, tolerance, safety, personal and professional growth, accessibility, dedication, transparency, partnerships, and respect. Some priorities that we have currently are to improve the city's financial condition and general fund cash balances. Will also raise our bond rating. We're going to conduct a city staff analysis, develop a new comprehensive plan, annex some non-incorporated islands within the city, improve downtown revitalization policies. Those will probably come along after the community assessment is complete that the Visitors Bureau is working on. And recodification of the city code, something that needs to be done, should have been done a long time ago. It's not cheap and it's not short, but the city code is piecemealed together over many, many decades. It's important that different parts of it agree with itself and anything unnecessary is removed. And our 4 capital improvement priorities are street repair projects. We're going to upgrade the fueling facility at the airport, ongoing sidewalk construction, and replace the water plant filter controls. So some of that's more interesting than others, but I really like that we met and came up with our mission and vision statements because they just remind all of us. I mean, there's 60-some, 70-some city employees, ranging from extremely part-time council members to full-time public works, waterworks, wastewater, all the hardworking people, and just to remind us, what are we doing? What is our purpose? What is our reason for existing? So that's that.
Is that finished, or what's the process on that?
Yeah, it's adopted now. And
Okay.
I saw Mike Harmon had some rather large printouts of what I just read that will be posted around City Hall and different places. And it's like I said, it's a reminder not just to the public how we at the city view ourselves as fitting into their lives, but also a reminder to the employees of the city what it is we're about.
Great.
All right, we're setting a public hearing for the sale of the 102 South 23rd Street. That's the building that was donated to the city for a time, occupied by MRC Recycling, Midwest Recycling. I can't say anything about the buyer until it's official. So on August 10th, our next council meeting, we'll have a hearing, and then we'll hear more about who's interested in.
So they'll actually come forward at that point?
Yeah, and then we'll know who's interested in for what purpose. All right. We did approve the application for the USDA rural development grants. Those are the ones we're looking to get for our wastewater upgrades. Then we authorized a contract with Pathfinders, who's a local nonprofit who has helped the city and many other local organizations, but the city particularly, in many grant applications, and has a very, very high success rate in those applications. Again, just to remind people that up to 70% of our project could be applicable for grants, and any percentage from more than zero is helpful, because currently there are no other grant opportunities, which means the entire $27 million wastewater upgrade, repair, and all that would have to become out of the user fees, which is what we pay every month on our utility bill. So grants would be
a big help.
Big help.
Yeah.
Big help.
And what's the time frame on that?
We're applying right away for phase 1 and phase 2, and then after October, there's another set of funds available, and we'll apply for phase 3. So we're applying. Phase 1 and phase 2 are separate applications, but they're both for this fiscal budget. The federal government is on a different fiscal budget. I guess it ends September and starts October, which is unusual. I've never really understood fiscal budgets. Even the cities is mid-year.
Yeah, you choose where you want, and it's just a year. I don't know if it's a set time when it starts or not, but it's just around different some traditions.
There must have been,
functions.
there must have been some method
But
to the
when
madness.
did you find out about that? Is that in?
I'll have to let you know.
Oh, we don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but hopefully soonish. I imagine if the next cycle starts in October, that they would tell people that the current cycle by that time. So that's not too long.
But we're not holding you to that since you don't know for
Since I don't know. Yes, I'm guessing. Alrighty. This is the thing that I mentioned before.
Okay.
And now it's happening, is a referendum will be on the November ballot for Fairfield citizens. And it's the local option sales tax reallocation. I'd spoken about this before. We're moving forward on it. Oh, let me get it here. So currently, and for a number of years, that 1% that we pay extra on any sales tax in the city, so 5% goes to the state, 1% is local option for the city, and I think there's 1% for the schools. So we pay 7%, 7 cents on every dollar. Historically, it started to fund the city's portion of the law center, but the local option sales tax base grew year to year, and it got paid off early. So then the city proposed changing the allocation, and I don't know if this was the allocation that was proposed or if this was the next incarnation, which was, instead of letting that sales tax expire, continuing it for these specific purposes. So 25% was for sewer repairs, maintenance, whatever, just for the sewer department, 50% for streets, and the remainder 25 at one point was listed just community betterment. But then when voters in 2010 decided to have the city purchase the Arts and Convention Center, that 25% got split, 12.5 for community betterment, 12.5 for the retirement of the debt not to exceed $650,000, which is what we got that building for. Now we're halfway through paying that off, so another 5 years, that 25% will probably just revert to, actually the way it's written is that it will not require another vote once that's paid off up to that $650,000, no more than that. It'll just go back to any lawful purpose, including community betterment. So that's how it's been. The proposal is to keep 50% for streets, keep the 25% for community betterment, so those two, the 12.5 towards the retirement of the debt for the convention center, but change the 25% from sewer to property tax relief. And someone asked, is that saying that kind of a gimmick? Well, it's actually, there are only certain legal purposes that you can have for local option sales tax, and this is the one that fits the description of what our intention is, which is to channel those funds into the general fund, which would help us build the general fund balance up to the 1.4 million that Moody's recommends. It's a percentage of our total operating expense for the year. They want a percentage of that in cash reserve. Currently, it's nowhere near that. I'll just say it that. It would help with that. Those funds in the general fund are available for whatever purpose is needed within the city. So historically, local option sales tax annual totals have been about $800,000. So we're talking about $200,000. The big question, I posted this on social media today, the big question I've gotten so far is, well, if you've taken that money away from sewer, will my rates go up? Will my bill be higher? The answer is no, because the original thinking of having that for sewer was before the city got, I don't want to say got serious, but before the city hired McClure Engineering to do a rate study, and they're a professional company that helps municipalities with wastewater specifically. So it was a nice gesture to have a little extra to try to fix the system, but it wasn't going to do what needed to be done. The only way to get that done is to break into phases, borrow, or in this case, maybe get grants for the cost to do this, $27 million, and then tie the payback of those loans to the user fee. So McClure gave us a user fee schedule increase. So year one, increase them this percent. Year two, this percent, and on and on. And it is a schedule, and it doesn't have to be held to hard and fast in case some projects cost less than expected, hopefully. Or in the case of getting the grants, that would be amazing. But that 25% for sewer wasn't figured into that at all. So we already are in that schedule. We've been making these increases, I think, for the last 2 years now. So there's no change in what was going to happen in that regard. And although $200,000 sounds like a lot of money, when you're talking about a $27 million project, it's a kind of a drop in the bucket, and it's not going to have a large effect on it. What will help save, when the city saves money, the taxpayers save money, but if we had those funds and we got that bond rating back up and our interest rates went down, there's a savings. And the city has used an emergency levy. The city can only levy up to a certain amount on your property tax. Now, the property taxes we pay, that's not all city. There's county on there, there's schools, there's hospital. City is just one taxing entity. And the state dictates percentages as well. So this last year, the city's portion came down. We levied less. But most people are paying more because the state made a change. So when the city comes down, doesn't mean your property taxes in general come down. It just means the portion that we're levying is lower. We could potentially take that emergency levy off. So then again, the portion the city's taxing would be less. So that is true property tax relief. It's not just saying it, but actually doing it. The way that it's also property tax relief is that the general fund largest revenue source is property tax. There are other revenue sources the city has, but wastewater and waterworks both operate as enterprise funds. They are self-sufficient, standalone funds within the city, operating like a business, but unlike a regular business, which is for profit, these are just break even. They aren't supposed to use funds from other accounts, and they're not supposed to put their funds into other accounts, ideally. That's the way it's designed. So if wastewater was self-sufficient, the user fees pay for, this little pun, 'cause it's wastewater. All right, never mind. The user fees pay for the necessary upgrades, pay for the service that you get. Same with the waterworks. Then the rest of the other departments, most of them don't have a revenue source. Rec Center does to some extent for user fees for the rec center and the parks. Public Works gets some road use tax. Maybe the library has some user fees. So there's some income for that, but the general fund is funded by property tax. So if we had this other $200,000 a year approximately coming in, that means it doesn't have to come from property tax. So again, property tax relief is the appropriate terminology, but again, it's also a legal requirement to call it one of several things: community betterment, property tax relief. There aren't unending possibilities on that. So what we did was we authorized the question of the change of use to be on the ballot in November. So to go to the voters, and it'll be up to the city voters to decide, do we want to allocate that 25% from sewer to property tax relief? So
it'll be asked that simply?
Yeah, I actually posted the sample question.
Oh, you did? Okay.
On the City of Government Facebook page.
All right.
And if you look at it, 50th Street stays, the 25% community betterment broken into those two portions is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only change is 25 sewer changes to 25% property tax relief. That's the only wording difference from what it was to what we would like it to be. So I'm sure there'll be many questions between now and then. And
it's not till November, right? So.
Yeah, and I like using social media. As I say, it's just where people are. If you have a town hall meeting, you're probably going to get less response than sharing something on social media, because it's just the new place to be. It's just where people spend their time.
And speaking of that, you are listening to Solar Powered KRUU-FM. We also have FMC in the house, Fairfield Media Center, taping this program as well. You can catch City Hall news after each City Council session the Tuesday following City Council at 12:30 lunchtime, 6:30 p.m. Thursday dinner time, and then the following Monday, 6:30 a.m. breakfast time, so you can snuffify yourself up to the latest haps, as it were. And we're into the details here today, folks.
Yep. All right.
What else you got, Michael?
Yeah, we had an amendment to the commercial, industrial, residential, urban revitalization plan. We put this in place, I think, in 2012, and it included some exemptions. It said if a project was getting other grant funds, say from federal or state, that they were excluded from our incentives. And we decided that doesn't make sense, because we want to be inclusive, and there are a lot of projects that, in order to be economically viable, they need federal, state, and local. They need them all to make it happen. So we just changed the wording on that, and it's an ordinance. So first reading passed, first to second reading. The rezoning of the property along 227th that Fairfield Economic Development Association owns. Anytime property is annexed into the city, it automatically is zoned R1, residential. But in that area, it's west of our wastewater plant, they want to be able to market it as M2 general manufacturing. So we'd passed from the first to second reading. This was going to be second to third, and then next meeting would have been third and final. But in order to get the road paving project going, and it's going to be a county-city partnership, and FEDA pitching in, they requested what we call suspending the rules, which we're allowed to do by law, and go ahead and go to the final reading in one meeting. We don't do this very often. You like to allow due process for these kind of things, but on non-controversial issues where there's a real need for something to be done quickly, we go ahead and do that. So I made that motion, and we got that one done instead of going to the next reading. But the rezoning of the property on Little Libertyville Road, west of the hospital, we just went from the second to third. So there'll be another reading on that. and that's rezoning it from R1 to R3 multifamily. The owners have some plans to do multifamily residence, duplexes, that kind of thing on that property. So we want to be able to get that. Once it's zoned, they can move forward. The mayor didn't have a report, neither did the city attorney, but there were two committee reports. First was Environment Committee. We had met last week, discussed 3 issues. First, we had representatives from, that's not the right one. Representatives from Ideal Energy. They've been more or less educating our committee about how solar projects work, how schools, banks, other city municipalities are using solar energy projects as investments. And we're just gearing up before we look into something else besides that small array in the library, something a little larger, a little more substantial. But I like the way my fellow councilman Darren Hamilton said it. He said he wants to do something that in 20 years, the council sitting at that time looks back and thanks the council right now for what we did, that we made a decision that helped them. And I think that he can say that because he's been on the other side of that. He, more than any other council member, has focused his attention on the wastewater project. And when he came in, there wasn't a plan. We were being told by the state DNR, you need to stop these sanitary sewer overflows. You need to have a plan. And it took a long time to actually get around to making something real. And he was a big part of that. And I'm sure many times he's thought, if only the council from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, had done something, had raised the rates and fixed some of this at that time, we wouldn't be where we are now. But because it wasn't done, and we can't blame anyone from the past, but it just wasn't done, it's what's referred to as deferred maintenance, where it wasn't fixed at the time, and people were paying lower rates than what they really should have, and now we all have to bear the burden of that. Hopefully these USDA grants will help relieve some of that burden. We also talked about a proposal from the Blue Zones organizers in Des Moines. They're working with their various Blue Zones committees, and some of these cities are actually adopting nicotine-free park ordinances. So public parks, shared public spaces, making them nicotine-free. It means not just cigarettes, but all sorts of nicotine products, including e-cigarettes and chew and all that kind of thing. Now, I wanted to get some feedback, so I posted again on social media and was actually really surprised by people who I consider health conscious who didn't support this. They felt that it's just another law, it's just another ordinance for our local police to enforce. It's difficult to enforce, and why not just let people work it out amongst themselves? And I love that idea, that people can work things out amongst themselves. It would make life a lot easier. So at this point, we're just tabling it because it didn't come from within our community. It wasn't community support. It felt like a top-down rather than a bottom-up. And you don't want to take something cookie cutter and apply it to a community. You want the community to embrace it and get on board, and that's not what happened here. So unless some group grabs onto this and builds support for it, it's not going to be.
But you're saying some of the cities with the Blue Zone people decided to do that, and it worked. It's worked fine.
I don't know how it's worked. I mean, again, it's the enforcement part is tricky. It would be a nuisance ordinance similar to picking up after your dog waste.
Right.
If an officer doesn't catch the person in the act or right after get an admission, they can't issue a citation. So it's just one of those things where it's something on the books. If your neighbor continually comes to your yard and has his dog do his business and you're fed up with it, and if you catch him, you can have a citation issued. Otherwise, it's just your word against someone else's word. So, very tricky. All right. The one issue that we did, hang on a second, folks. Hey, you're on video.
Writer's Voices host, Monica Hadley, who's doing a pre-record back in the pre-record studio. You're seeing life. This is us in motion, folks.
That's right.
For your Fairfield Media Center, guys. This is going on every day in and day out. But
all right, last thing was just the service agency.
Gotcha. We're just wrapping up.
The county, the city, our 2080 agreement. We're talking about the recycling center, how to make an equitable split. I'm on that service agency, as is Doug Flournoy. He and I disagreed. I thought it should be 60% county, 40% city, because it was the opposite way for so long that in order to really kind of make it equitable, we should switch those percentages. That didn't go over well, even though it was proposed by other members of the service agency, who then changed their position. Doug recommended 50-50. The council said, sounds fair. So 50-50, we'll take it back. Service agency, and hope no one changes their mind again. So we can lay that issue to rest.
All right.
And then finally, economic development. We had met right before the council meeting. We're extending the road, Lincoln Avenue, that new road that goes out by the new bank across from the hospital. But this time of year is not ideal for letting bids because all the construction people are busy. So we're going to postpone it. There's no really reason we need it to be done right away. And let the bids in winter. And winter is when they're hungry. They're looking for spring jobs. So we should get better bids. So just a little bit of a strategy in order to get the best possible bids. The final thing is many of our projects, it's kind of funny, our city engineer said she can sum up the project update simply by saying delayed by rain. Almost everything has been delayed by rain.
It's been raining a lot.
Highland Street can't get paved. The basketball court can't get poured. The project is delayed. So it's great to have it for the plants and such, but it would be nice to have a break and to start pouring for some of these projects.
Well, I just wish we could ship some to California, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But at any rate, is that it, Michael?
That's all.
Michael Halley, 4th City Council Ward person, and in the house, Jason Strong. Happy birthday. This is James Moore with solar-powered KRUU-FM. You've been listening to City Business. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I predict. Don't go changing to try to please us. We love you just the way you are.